Over the past few years, I have mentioned a few times that I have never actually used an iPhone as my daily driver before. Yeah, 17 years into the iPhone's life cycle, I have not owned and used one myself. Then, I think my colleague, John, got tired of my constant complaints and he lent me his iPhone 13 Pro, his old iPhone actually. I thought, since I'm already gonna use an iPhone as my daily driver for the period of this testing, then why not just make a video documenting my entire journey and then share it with you guys. Hence, the title of this video is My iPhone Journey. In this video, I'll be sharing you 3 good points and 3 not so good aspects of iOS in general, and there will be one neutral point at the end of this video that I think perfectly embodies my opinion about iOS. The entire narrative of this video will be in the perspective of a first-time iPhone user who is switching over from a Samsung phone because, yeah, I have been using Samsung phones for a long time, so there will be quite a lot of comparisons in this video as well. Now, since I am gonna use the iPhone 13 Pro and it is considered quote-unquote old at this point, I'm not gonna talk about the phone itself, as in the cameras or the battery life and whatnot. So the first obvious big strength of iOS, actually for any Apple devices for that matter, is the ecosystem. From the moment I booted up the phone, I had to go through the setup process like any other phone, and since I am also using an iPad Air, I can skip a lot of the hassle of logging into my accounts thanks to the ecosystem features that Apple has. It's interesting to see them implementing these creative ideas as a way to pair the devices together before I actually log into my Apple account. Oh, since I am a MacBook Pro user, I also got to experience another part of the ecosystem as well, and when I got a call on my iPhone, my MacBook Pro starts ringing as well. That means I wouldn't miss a call when I am totally focused on my work while looking at my laptop only. I can also manage the iPhone either wirelessly or wired via the macOS Finder, their file manager, directly without installing any other applications. I mean, it's quite unfortunate that we can't really do much here other than to just sync some stuff or to copy files into certain apps, but hey, it's an option. I also tried using iMessage and it opened my eyes to why it is such a hot debate when it comes to the blue text bubble. iMessage is technically Telegram but works directly and natively on all of your Apple devices. It's a simple, straightforward app and just works. Plus, Apple's emphasis on privacy also gives us a peace of mind. Now, I'm not saying iMessage should be the reason for you to switch over to iPhones because Telegram exists and it is free. But do consider this. If Telegram as a service is free, then I guess our data is the product? But when I continued using the iPhone, I found out one big problem. The notifications. This is just painful. The notification system is horrible in 2 ways. Firstly, the iconic notification bar in iPhone is as annoying as ever to me as it sorts everything chronologically. But for whatever reason, they grouped the notifications that I receive while in Do Not Disturb mode in another section. I think this is just very clunky. Secondly, by default, all notifications received will light up the screen. I think this is just very annoying as I get many notifications in a single day and there's just no easy way to disable this other than just to, flip the phone and have the screen face down on the table. Instead, I will have to head into the settings menu and disable lock screen notifications from every single app. Yes, every single app, one by one. And when we install a new app, we'll have to disable this manually for that new app in particular as well. Such a fun thing to do, right? Come on now, just give us a button to disable lock screen notification for all apps permanently, and I just want this to be a feature in iOS 18. But after that, the more I use this phone, the more I like it. Some people might argue that this notch is ugly, and I agree. The new dynamic island is also ugly. But I think Apple's reason to have a notch there is justifiable, and that is because of Face ID. I think Face ID is just far more superior than all under-display fingerprint scanners. It's faster, more accurate, and reliable too. If I'm wearing glasses or a mask, then Face ID still works. And amazingly, the software integration on iOS is actually way beyond my expectations, to be honest. So I already love to use apps like Samsung Wallet on my other phones for like 5 years right now, but adding cards to my Samsung Wallet account has been very manual. I have to either tap the card to the back of my phone using NFC to, scan all my data and whatnot, or I can take a picture of my credit cards or just, manually type all the data into Samsung Wallet app myself. On iOS though, when I install the MAE app, which is the app of the bank that I use, I can immediately add my credit cards and debit card into Apple Wallet by just tapping a few buttons. It's seamless and it's super easy to do. The same goes for flight tickets as well. John told me for our most recent flight to Taipei via EVA Air, he used his iPhone to check in those flights and it immediately gave him an option to add those boarding tickets into his Apple Wallet. Samsung, on the other hand, only supports Korean Air and Etihad for now. Certain apps also take advantage of iPhone's hardware, like Facebook for example. I think this app utilizes the hardware in many interesting ways. For example, when we share a post, it will have a tiny vibration, and I think that's an excellent way to make use of hardware to provide additional information, and in this case, via haptics. But in terms of personalization, I think this is definitely not a strong point for iOS. I wanted to reuse my ringtone from my previous phone, and I thought, hey, that would be real simple, right? Turns out, no, and I gave up. Apparently, I can't just transfer some audio file and tell it to use it as my ringtone. Instead, I have to import the audio into GarageBand of all apps and then export it out again, and then from there, I can tell the phone to use that audio as my ringtone. Why the extra steps? I don't know. No wonder so many people are still using the default ringtone on their iPhones to the point that it became a meme. Another feature that I want to do on the iPhone is some sort of automation. Since I am someone who takes heavy advantage of Samsung's mood and routines, I want to do the same on the iPhone's Shortcuts app as well. And oh boy, let me tell you how unreliable this is. The automation option available here is already very limited. Yet, I can't set it to do simple things like changing the phone to lock into landscape orientation when I open the YouTube app, for example. Well, fine. One task that I want to do is to launch the Hoyo Lab app so I can claim my daily rewards on Genshin Impact. Simple to do, right? I do this on my phone because I constantly forget stuff. So I have this configured on my Samsung phone, so I just configured the same thing on the iPhone as well and went about my day. And then 2 days pass. Then that's when I realized that Apple's automation is basically non-existent. It just never works, and I don't know how to trigger the automation even though it is already active. That just defeats the purpose of having automation, right? So, But I have to admit, both iOS and iPadOS are very smooth. I had zero hiccups and there were zero lags and stutters. Everything was smooth like WD-40 on a screw. Animations are very consistent and it flows nicely every single time I swipe. Now, despite the iPhone 13 Pro being a 2-year-old phone at this point, I still played Genshin Impact on this phone, and I gotta say, the experience is magnificent. It has better graphics with higher resolution textures and smoother gameplay despite it being an older chipset. That's the wonder of optimization. And yet, with an old chip and a tinier battery, the iPhone 13 Pro will still manage to last me throughout one full day of usage with a single charge. Honestly, I'm very impressed with the battery life. However, when I try to type something on the iPhone, I immediately get an anxiety attack. One of the objectively worst aspects of iPhones, iPads included, is this, the keyboard. No, not just this keyboard, but actually every single keyboard that is available on iOS. All of them suck hard like a black hole. I downloaded Gboard at first, assuming that it will be the same as the Android version, but no, I realized that Apple's version is completely different. There are way too many missing features like clipboard management, for example, and also the emoji support is horrible here. The keyboard also behaves differently when I swipe type. Then I gave up and just used the default iOS keyboard. But this is also weak and problematic. The autocorrection is way too aggressive, and while it doesn't look like there is an alternate key like the degree Unicode on the keyboard itself, we can actually tap and hold for them to show up. Yeah, there is no UI indication for this, so it's basically up to us to accidentally discover them, I guess. And I found out that the degree Unicode is found inside the number 0 button when we tap and hold it. Text selection is also a problem. On Android, I can just double tap anywhere on the text field and then just tap select all, and then I can have everything copied or cut. On iOS though, double tapping on whatever text just gave me some irrelevant option. Then I asked John about it and he told me that we have to press on the cursor instead. Since when does the UI tell us to do that? Now, as promised, the last point here is about a neutral point that embodies my opinion about iOS. And it's just one simple word: simplicity. And I think this is a double-edged sword for iOS case. Okay, so hear me out. The allure of iPhones is its simplicity. Simplicity is good if you just want to take the phone and immediately use it. However, the simple interface might not be the best for your particular usage, or even for my particular usage. I have the opinion here, it seems that Apple's design mantra is that they think they know what's best for their users. Hence, they just keep things as simple as possible and take control away from the user. Hence, the lack of customization on iOS. That's also why keyboards suck and the app library is just a mess. Seriously, finding any apps within the app library menu is impossible unless you know the name of the app and use the search functionality. But back to the topic at hand. There is no one-size-fits-all interface in my opinion. That's why personalization exists, and that is why it is so important. Everyone has a different way of doing things, so let us just pick how we want it to be. That would be much better for everyone, right? Also, I think having a universal back or gesture on Android device is just far more superior. For iPhone, they never have this universal back button. It's always up to the app designers to implement this in their apps. And that basically becomes an annoying inconsistency. Apple's way of a back button is either swiping from the left or swiping down. Sometimes this gesture just doesn't work, and we have to tap the close button or the cancel or the back button that's located either on the top left or the top right corner of the menu. And yeah, you see the problem here? It's just very inconsistent. Let me give you a few examples here. Telegram's back button is on the top left, but we can also swipe from the left to dismiss. Apple's own journal app has the done button on the top right corner, but we can swipe down to dismiss it. Twitter's community note though has the cancel button on the top right, but we cannot swipe anywhere to dismiss it. Oh, particularly for Facebook, if I didn't press the C translation button with pinpoint accuracy, then I'll just accidentally trigger the more options menu. Then my muscle memory says just swipe down to dismiss this menu, but this menu doesn't have that feature implemented, but instead it will just select whatever option my fingers stop swiping at. Seriously, what gives? That universal back button is something that I just took for granted on Android devices, and I have never found this to be a problem until I started using an iOS device. Having a universal back button or gesture is just objectively better. It's the little things like this that just make me furious about iOS. So the final question is, will I switch over to an iPhone? Well, actually I will. Certain apps make use of the hardware and software features to the point that it just feels so much better than any Android phones that I've used in the past. As what I have mentioned earlier, Facebook's vibration is just something better, and the integration with MAE with Apple Wallet just makes everything feel so seamless. But of course, there are problems with iOS that just infuriates me. Notifications is still a mess, and not having a universal back button causes a lot of UI inconsistency. The app library is unusable, and all keyboards available on iOS and iPadOS just plain sucks. To me, as a reviewer, I think having an iPhone with me means that I have a more holistic opinion about phones in general. I mean, a lot of people will say that if you're paying top dollar for a phone, then they'll only consider an iPhone. Now I have a better understanding of why. And that's all that I have to share with you in today's video. Thanks to all of you for sticking to the end of this presumably very long video. That's me rambling about iOS in general, and do let me know, are you an iPhone user right now? What do you think about iOS? If you are not an iPhone user, then will you switch over or not? And why? Let me know all of your opinions down in the comment section below, because I'm gonna read through all of them. I just want to know your opinion on this thing. And also remember to subscribe and hit that like button. I'll see you guys in the next video where we review some other phones. Hopefully we get to review the iPhone 16 when it comes out. Yeah.